everyone. So this is round two of our interviews at the Rhode Island Author Expo, and I get to welcome back an old friend of the show. We've talked a couple times already, and now you have a new book out. This one is all about your life, basically. Joann and Jim Mead are here to talk about their book, Married in Moscow, which that's an awesome cover, by the way. It's a very cool cover. So this is all about your lives, how the two of you met, basically.
Right.
What about that story made you think, you know what, I want to put this out there and share with everyone?
Well, we were inspired during the pandemic because Jim found all of my slides that were 40 years old.
Yeah.
Because we were both in Moscow 1979 to 1981.
Yep.
And
we also found a whole bunch of posters that we had stuck in a couple of tubes.
Yeah.
Never done anything with them. And we thought, well, why don't we back them up and put them in frames?
Exactly.
And that sort of got us thinking about, well, why don't we write the stories that go with all the stuff we've got?
Sure.
all the photos, all of the posters, which are communist propaganda posters, and satire from that era, late 1970s. I mean, they're quite collector items.
Yeah, I'll bet.
What we've gotten here is our 40 of the photos and posters, and also a lot of art from the artists that we met there, dissident artists. Now, a little backstory. So it's 1979. Jim is coming in from Moscow. From London to Moscow.
I wonder where he's from. Exactly. That's where he's from.
Yeah.
So he's from Wimbledon. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm the California Wild Child.
Yeah.
And we're both new teachers at the Anglo-American School in Moscow. So
I don't speak Russian. I've never lived abroad. Joann had lived abroad. I hadn't. So I got there, and my first sort of impression is that I have a suitcase in one hand, I have this guitar in the other, and I've got this really heavy coat, winter coat.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where to put it, so I put it on. Well, of course, it's 95 degrees in August.
Oh!
So
Mistakes
I'm
were made.
sweating profusely, and you're handing passports, and then I get to the customs, they open up my suitcase, they look at everything. They get really interested in the fact that I've got The Who, Pink Floyd, and Jimi Hendrix songbooks. And so I've no Russian. So what do I do? So I start this thing of pointing and saying, look, over there, guitar.
Yeah. I play music.
The thing I'm wondering about is, oh God, please don't ask me to play a medley now, because I can't play I can't play any of it.
So, our book, a bit more. It's a wild ride, fast, furious, funny.
Nice.
When I first met Jim, it was not love at first sight.
Right, it never is, right?
Or a second.
Right.
Second sight.
Which eventually got there.
Yeah.
So here he is with his friends Lenin, Marx, and Engels. Just to give you some example here.
Yeah.
US Embassy.
Yes, what happened to me was I got there and I was taken into the U.S. Embassy for a briefing by the security officer.
Ooh.
Yeah, very much on the top floor, and it was all aluminum foil all over the windows because they were being zapped with microwaves from across the street.
Oh, that's not great.
Right, now the whole building was bugged. It was
Of course
full
it was.
bugs. And he told me, you've got certain rules you have to follow when you're here. Not just the American rules, but you have to follow Soviet rules, the Moscow rules.
Sure.
Now, one thing in particular, no photographs of airplanes or boats or any kind of military vehicles, tanks, no troops, no missiles. So I thought, but I really love to taking photos. And I had this little tiny camera of mine.
I'm gonna follow none of those rules.
Yeah, I don't follow rules. That's the California wild child in me. So, so what I did is I put a little knit beanie on my head and my baggy trousers, and I snuck into Red Square during the October Revolution parade. So as you can see
my God.
here, this is Red Square, Rocket's Red Glare, and I can hear these troops going by. I can see these tips of missiles, and I got my little camera and went click, click, click up at the troops and the tanks and the wonderful missiles and
All the things she wasn't
all
supposed
those,
to do.
Right.
some of the missiles and whatnot.
Don't do these things. I'm doing all these things.
Right.
That's amazing.
So bad Joann, right?
Yeah, it's very
Do
bad,
not follow
Joann.
the rules.
And they're pretty serious about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, what was it like for the two of you to kind of go back down this like part of your life and sort of relive it all over again while you're writing the book?
Well, you know, when you're looking at your old photos, the stories start coming out.
Yeah.
And actually, I had written a short story that was published in the Aria Anthology in 2020.
Yeah.
In the Hope Anthology. It was Married in Moscow, but it was a short story. And so we're talking about, gee, do you remember this and that? I mean, photographs really help you remember.
Sure.
And we remembered our good friends and the diplomats, the other teachers. We met a lot of Russian dissidents, artists, refuseniks. We have a lot of the artwork and photography from them. So, so those stories pretty much just had to come out.
Yeah.
That's really how it really was a prompt. The whole thing. You sort of look at a poster and you go, I remember buying that.
Yeah.
This is what I did there.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It all just kind of comes back to you. So what was it like to be in Moscow in '79, not being Russian, either one of you?
Well, for me, the problem was that I had all of these ideas about what it was going to be like before I even got there. So when I got there, I thought, all right, I'm going to be living with Russians. You never live with Russians, ever. We live in special diplomatic blocks.
Yeah.
And we have guards to make sure that we don't have anything to do with Russians.
Yes,
And they also-
the Millie Man. Yes.
And they also look out to make sure where you're going and when you're going there. I also had another small problem. I thought that I would get a motorcycle on a sidecar. I knew that I wasn't going to get a solo because it's too icy and cold.
Sure.
And
But
he
I
did
thought
not have a driver's license.
Whoops.
Not for cars.
So what happened was I went and sent for my license, and it came back and it was a Soviet driving license.
It was a
for
motorcycle.
car.
They didn't translate it properly.
Whoops.
So that was okay because I thought to myself, yeah, sure, I could drive a car, I think.
He's never
I've
driven one.
never driven one. So I get to the British Embassy and I have to get the car to the apartment. So I took a friend, a teacher, I think I scared her to death. She never went with me again, ever.
That means it passed, right?
Yeah, I just kangaroos.
Yeah.
And I got out. I got to third gear, which I thought was good. That's 20 miles an hour. This is great.
Right.
Then I had a week playing around in the apartment block and then eventually sort of poking my nose out to find the way from my apartment to the school. So it was pretty hairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, life was not like it was at home, was it? You know, we met so many incredible, again, back to those people that you would never meet in ordinary life.
Sure.
Bob Hope came to Moscow. He came to the school because the kids invited him. They asked me to write, they all put their little signatures on the scroll, and he came to the school, and Jim was teaching.
Yes, I was teaching kindergarten. And if you know anything about 5-year-olds, one, they have no idea who Bob Hope is.
Right.
But Bob Hope asked, please, ask me questions. So the first thing that happens is the little 5-year-olds are jumping up and go, oh, well, me.
Yeah.
Fool, he decided.
Right, this is a mistake.
How big is your garage?
This is what the kid asked.
Bob Hope, world-renowned comedian, and of all the questions,
Yeah, right.
that was not the one instantly.
Right. He's like, regular size, I guess.
It's pretty big.
Yeah. I'm pretty successful, so it's a sizable garage.
Yeah. He then asked all the other older kids after. They never asked my kids any more questions.
No, he was really great. He was invited by Ambassador Watson,
Yep.
who actually we had dinner with later on in the year. But he put on a show for all of the Americans. I wasn't married to Jim. He didn't get to go to that show. But in the ballroom in the residence, he and his wife Dolores put on like a good, wonderful show for about 500 of us Americans there. And then you had cocktails with him at the British Embassy because he was British born too.
Yeah, he was born actually close to where I went to college.
Wow.
Eltham. So we didn't know. He hadn't been there for years. But
That's really cool. You get to like a hangout with Bob Hope. It's not a bad way to spend the night.
yeah.
All right. I want to ask them about the two of you. How did you meet, and what was it like when you first met? I got to ask that question.
Yes.
Okay.
It was early on. Before school started, the American Embassy, a woman there, organized a tour of the Moscow Underground, which is like phenomenal. It's like chandeliers and marble and gorgeous. Down below ground, it's fantastic. Above ground,
Yep.
pretty shabby.
There
But
were two of us. The
Yes.
only two turned up.
we're the
Me.
only two, yeah. And it was not love at first sight.
Never
So,
is.
no. As a matter of fact, oh gosh, I'm going to be working with this guy. No way, And so, I went on my merry way. I kept on getting this. I swear she was the Tinder lady at the embassy. She would set us all up with different people. So I went out with the U.S. Ambassador's aide. We went to. This is getting to be pretty glamorous stuff. Francis Ford Coppola had come for the Moscow premiere of Apocalypse Now, and this is like, wow, this is cool. So, I was going out with other people in the embassy, cultural attachés,
When we got engaged, the principal had a staff meeting and said about the engagement, and he said, we're going to have the engagement party in Lenin Square for all her former boyfriends.
You weren't supposed to say that. Anyway, but we didn't really get together formally until one night at the Marine House Bar in the U.S. Embassy. Friday nights, the U.S. Marines opened up their bar, and everybody from all Western embassies went dancing and partying until late in the evenings. So that's when I sat on your lap and whispered sweet nothings in your ear. So I won't tell you what
Kind of like that.
Censored.
Yeah. You're like, I don't remember that.
No, I don't.
No,
So you don't think that's what happened, but all right, we'll move on.
and then we played games.
Yes, yeah.
We played a lot of games in Moscow too.
Yeah.
One in particular.
The stupidest game was called Broomball. It only happens in Moscow.
Yeah.
It's on a frozen tennis court. You have trainers. So it's rather like, those cartoons where the guy runs and gets nowhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And you try and whack a little kid's ball and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and we had
It sounds like it would go like very south very fast.
yes. And there were these little hooked instruments that we made out of Russian brooms, and we
Yeah.
wrapped them in masking tape, and that was our broom ball. It's not played anywhere else in the world.
I want to play it though now.
Yeah.
I really want to play it now.
And so you had embassy teams. The Australian women beat us, American women.
At the end of the season, I had what was called the Broom Ball, which was in the ambassador's house.
Yes, again.
Well, I
he was.
DJ, or I did do. and I DJ'd this thing. So I thought, oh, this is great. What I'll do is I'll play a little bit of the Soviet anthem and then fade into Anita Ward, Ring My Bell. There's a diplomatic incident. The Russians were absolutely furious
all the
with
Russian
me.
staff was in the ballroom
Oh,
to serve that
no.
evening. Yes, but his incident was minor compared to what happened to me.
Well, what'd you do, Joann?
Well, that's what happened. Okay, we were supposed to the summer came, we're supposed to be working for NBC, taking the film crews around because it was the Moscow Olympics.
Yep.
Summer Olympics, but instead, of course, in 1979, the Russians invaded Afghanistan. So that nixed all of our plans with NBC. Instead of 700 people showing up from the NBC, only 7 came.
So what I decided what we do is we go around the world. Pan Am were doing this crazy thing where you could get a ticket to go all around the world. So I bought the tickets from the British Embassy.
Right. So we fly across the Soviet Union to just above the where was that? Near the Kamchatka Peninsula. I mean, this is you're going across 8 time zones. Mm-hmm. We get on a train that went along the Chinese border to the Far East Steamship Company, to this seaport, a military seaport, Nahodka, right? And
Yes.
so here's the steamship.
So we're at the passport control to get out of the country. I went straight through, no problem. Suddenly, Joann's behind me. Suddenly, she stopped. No, niet.
They come out and they're
So
taking
she's-
video of
Yeah.
me there, and I'm belligerent and saying no, I'm with him, and he's saying she's with me, and they're saying no, yet.
And 2 armed goons come and take her, haul her, literally,
Oh,
haul her
jeez.
away.
Pick me up by the arms, and I'm really not very happy.
No.
I'm pretty feisty under most circumstances. And they frog march me off. He's, in the meantime, refused to get on the boat. They take me, put me in, they open up a door, there's one little wooden chair. They stuck me in this little room, click, and locked me in. I'm sitting there going, oh no, what was it? What? Oh God, they must know about those illegal photographs.
Right.
Or maybe it might be those Alice B. Toklas brownies that we smuggled through the diplomatic pouch, which is also, you can't do things like that. I had no idea at the time. Anyway, long story short, should we make it a long story short? We managed to get out of that, but barely. I mean, the story is all in the book.
Exactly.
And why I was actually detained. I am not Brittany Griner, although we did have diplomatic immunity.
Okay.
So the worst they could have done is PNG, persona non grata,
Kick you out,
and
basically.
kick us out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the teacher, a history teacher at the same school, the school is closed down
Yep.
2 years ago, and it had changed to a charter school. There's a teacher that was there for 10 years. He was came in with medical marijuana. He is now 14 years in the penal colony, and he did not get out with Brittany Griner and Evan Gershwitz and Paul Whelan and that gang. He is still there. And this is a guy, he's about 64 now, 65, Mark Fogel. And we did write a little bit about him. We also wrote a lot about Russian dissidents. In particular, I've got to show you one. This was a wonderful friend. Artists in the Soviet Union had to only create socialist realism like this.
Yeah.
This guy did not conform. He was a wonderful person who...
He had a terrible stutter. So trying to
Sasha.
understand what he was saying.
Sure.
And what happened was he said 14 times he was put in a mental institution.
Yeah.
And he was accused of having what was it called? Sluggish
Schizophrenia.
Now, if you've never heard of that, neither's anyone else. It's to lock you up.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
it's
that
for.
kind of doesn't sound like it's a real thing, but all right.
Yeah, but really, this is socialist realism.
Yeah.
Them and us, obviously. We have
Yeah.
that whole series of 8 of them. Money for the meat grinder.
Yep. Yep.
The thing about
U.S. dollars for bombs.
the
This
thing
is
about propaganda is that it has to have just a hint of the truth in it.
Yep. Yep.
It's no good if it's just a complete lie.
Yeah.
Nobody believes it.
Right.
So that stuff, if you think about it, yeah, the Americans do.
Yeah.
Voice of America, Reagan Liberty.
Sure.
And they have the biggest defense budget in
Yep.
the world.
All right. Well, folks, you just heard a small sampling of the stories in this book. If you want to get it, you go to marriedinmoscow.com. Everything's there. Joann, Jim, it's great to see you again, and this sounds like an absolutely amazing book. I'm really glad it's published.
Yeah, we had so much fun writing it. And, thank you so much for having us here too.